The open road can be endless, but when night falls, it hides things no headlights should ever reveal. These are not just stories. They are confessions, real truckers, real encounters, and some of them never made it back to tell the tale. Before we begin, make sure to hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share your own experiences in the comments below. Who knows? Your story might be next. Story 1. The Abandoned Sedan. My name's Daniel. I've been a trucker for close to 12 years now, mostly doing overnight hauls through the Southwest. This story happened to me in 2018, somewhere along Highway 95 in Nevada, an empty 2-lane stretch of asphalt where you can go hours without seeing a single pair of headlights. That night, the desert was swallowing me whole. No moon, no stars, just blackness pressing in on every side. My rig's headlights were dim as hell. I'd been putting off replacing them, and it felt like I was staring into a tunnel that had no end. The longer I drove, the more my eyes burned, and every mile felt heavier than the last. I kept telling myself to pull over, just wait for sunrise, but the money was too good. I had to keep going. You can't afford hesitation in this line of work, not when every delivery counts. It must have been around 3 a.m. when I first saw it, something flickering faintly in the distance. I thought maybe it was a deer crossing, or some drunk idiot who'd broken down, but as the shape grew clearer, I realized it was a car, a silver sedan, parked dead center on the yellow lines. Its hazard lights blinked like a heartbeat in the darkness. I slammed the brakes, tires screaming against the asphalt, until the whole cab rattled. I stopped maybe a foot before plowing straight into it. My chest was tight, but my mind was racing with one thought: why the hell would someone leave their car like that in the middle of the road? That's when I noticed the passenger side door was wide open. Wide open, like someone had just stepped out. But there was no one in sight, and that was only the beginning. I sat there in my cab, gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The blink of the hazards was the only light for miles, pulsing in the dark like some kind of warning. I finally threw the truck in reverse, easing it back so I could pull off to the shoulder. My gut told me not to get involved, but my brain kept saying, what if someone needs help? When I stepped out, the desert air was unnaturally still. No wind, no crickets, just the faint tick-tick-tick of the hazard lights echoing in the emptiness. The car was newer, looked like a 2016 Chevy Malibu, clean, well kept. The kind of car you wouldn't expect to find abandoned in the middle of nowhere. I approached cautiously, scanning the black horizon with every step. The driver's seat, empty. The back seat, empty. No backpacks, no luggage, nothing, like the car had just been placed here. I turned slowly, scanning the desert, but all I could see was black nothingness. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was waiting, watching. And then I heard it, a single sharp crack echoing across the silence. It wasn't a twig. It wasn't an animal. It was the sound of a rifle being cocked. The crack of the rifle echoed so loud it felt like the desert itself shook. My whole body jolted, and I slammed my head on the frame of the car as I ducked instinctively. My heart hammered against my ribs. I didn't think. I just dropped the keys back onto the front seat and stumbled backward toward my truck. Then, another sound. A voice, raspy, deep and angry. "Hey!" It carried across the desert, getting closer with every second. I turned, and under the weak glow of my semi's headlights, I saw movement near the trunk of the Malibu. A figure was stepping out of the shadows, short, heavy-set, with a shock of messy blonde hair. He was wearing filthy denim overalls and mud-caked boots that looked like they belonged to someone who spent a lot of time digging. In one hand he held a rusted shovel, in the other a hunting rifle. For a frozen moment our eyes locked. His expression wasn't wild or crazed, it was worse, it was calm, calculating, like he'd been expecting me. He didn't raise the gun, not yet. Instead, he dropped the shovel and started waving his free hand. "Wait!" he shouted. "Don't go, come back!" Every instinct in me screamed that this was wrong, that if I stayed, I wouldn't make it out of there alive. I scrambled up into my cab, shaking so bad I could barely get the key into the ignition. My first attempt stalled the engine, and that's when he started moving faster, boots crunching against the asphalt, rifle bouncing in his grip. I managed to fire the truck up on the second try and slammed it into gear, flooring it down the highway. As the headlights swung across the mirror one last time, I caught a glimpse of him standing dead center in the road, rifle glinting in his hand, watching me disappear. And that was just the beginning of the nightmare. The tires screamed against the asphalt as my semi picked up speed, the cab rattling so hard I thought it might fall apart. My pulse was still in my throat, but for a moment I thought I was in the clear. Then I saw them, headlights in my mirrors. That silver Malibu was flying down the road behind me, faster than I thought a car like that could even go. Its high beams cut straight into my mirrors, blinding me, swallowing the cab in white light. I cursed under my breath and gripped the wheel tighter. My rig wasn't built for racing, especially not on a narrow two-lane highway in the middle of the desert. The Malibu closed the distance frighteningly fast, its engine roaring. Then came the horn, a long, violent blast that shattered the silence of the night. He was right on my bumper now, flashing his brights, laying on the horn, like he was trying to drive me into madness. I fumbled for my phone with one hand, dialing 911, my voice shaking as I tried to tell the dispatcher what was happening. She told me to stay calm, to keep driving, that officers were on their way. But 15 minutes on a pitch-black highway feels like an eternity when someone's tailgating you with a rifle in their car. Every second, I was waiting for the sound of a gunshot, waiting for glass to explode around me. And then he made his move. The Malibu swerved hard into the opposite lane, pulling up alongside my cab. I turned my head, and in the brief flash of headlights, I saw him, his face pale, his eyes wide, a sick grin spreading across his mouth. He pointed 2 fingers at me like a gun, then mouthed a single word. "Stop!" The Malibu swerved closer, so close I could see the paint flecks on his hood catching my headlights. My semi shook as his car scraped the steel side of my trailer, the screech of metal on metal echoing across the desert. "Jesus Christ," I yelled, yanking the wheel just enough to stay steady. One wrong move and I'd jackknife the entire rig. The man's face appeared again in his window. He wasn't shouting this time, he was laughing. That same cold grin like he knew something I didn't. Then he cut in front of me. The Malibu swerved sharply into my lane, brake lights flaring red. I slammed both feet on the brake, the truck shuddering violently, my cargo lurching forward with a sickening thud. My entire rig groaned like it was going to tear itself in half. I was seconds from plowing into him when flashing blue lights filled the horizon. Relief surged through me so fast I nearly collapsed against the wheel. A sheriff's cruiser tore up the opposite side of the highway, lights blazing, siren cutting through the night. But the Malibu didn't slow. He didn't even hesitate. Instead, he veered hard into the desert, headlights bouncing as he disappeared into the darkness beyond the shoulder. I slowed my truck, pulling over with my hazard lights on. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely shift gears. The cruiser stopped behind me. A deputy stepped out, hand resting on his holster, his flashlight slicing through the dark as he approached my cab. I leaned out the window, voice hoarse. "He's out there. Guy in a silver Malibu, rifle in the car. He tried to kill me." The deputy just nodded calmly, like I'd told him I'd seen a stray dog. "We'll take your statement. Backup's on the way." "No, you don't get it," I snapped. "He's right there. You can still catch him if you—" But the deputy just raised his hand, cutting me off. His face was blank, cold. "Sir," he said flatly, "step out of the vehicle." And in that moment I realized something far worse than being hunted by a stranger. Maybe this man wasn't working alone. I froze in my seat, still gripping the wheel, staring down at the deputy in the glow of my headlights. Something about the way he said it, "step out of the vehicle," wasn't right. His voice was too calm, too practiced. My brain screamed at me that if I got out I wasn't coming back. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to sound steady. "Look, officer, I just want to file the report. I'll give you everything, license plate, description, whatever. But I'm not stepping out on a pitch-black road when that guy's still out there." The deputy tilted his head, just slightly, like he was studying me. His flashlight beam cut across my windshield, right into my eyes, holding there just a little too long. Then he smiled. Not a reassuring smile. Not the kind of smile that says you're safe now. It was thin, crooked, almost mocking. "Sir," he repeated, softer this time, Step. Out. My chest tightened. For a split second, I thought about throwing the rig into gear and bolting, but then I noticed something in his other hand, down by his leg, half hidden by the glare of my headlights. A shovel, mud-stained, old, the same kind of shovel I'd just seen the man with the Malibu holding. My stomach dropped. My blood turned to ice. This wasn't a rescue. This was a setup. Before I could react, the deputy took a step closer, his smile widening under the flashing lights. And from the darkness of the desert behind him, another set of headlights flared to life. The Malibu was back. The silver Malibu's headlights snapped on like a pair of predator's eyes, cutting through the black desert. They pointed straight at me, the engine revving low and steady like a growl. I whipped my gaze back to the deputy. He didn't move, didn't flinch. He just stood there with that half smile, shovel dangling loosely from one hand, flashlight in the other. My mouth went dry. I realized then that the call ID made to 911 hadn't saved me. It had delivered me. Someone had heard. Someone had intercepted. The Malibu rolled closer, crunching gravel as it pulled onto the shoulder just a few yards behind the cruiser. Its engine cut off and the desert fell silent again, except for the faint click, click, click of its cooling hood. The driver's door opened, and out stepped the same heavy-set man I'd seen before, rifle now slung casually over his shoulder, like he had all the time in the world. He and the deputy shared a look, a nod. No words, like this was routine. That's when it hit me. This wasn't some random ambush. This was organized, practiced. They'd done this before. My pulse pounded so loud I could barely hear my own thoughts. I knew if I hesitated even one more second, I was done. So I made a choice. I slammed the truck into gear, flooring the accelerator. The engine roared like a beast awakening, the cab rattling as I yanked the wheel. Gravel and dust exploded into the air as my semi lunged forward, narrowly missing the deputy as he dove to the side. The Malibu's driver shouted something I couldn't make out, but I saw him scrambling back to his car in my mirror. The chase wasn't over. It had just begun. The semi roared down the highway, gears screaming as I pushed it harder than I ever had before. My mirrors rattled violently, but I could still see the Malibu's headlights flare up again, swinging onto the road after me like a predator locking onto its prey. My whole cab shook as the speedometer climbed. 80, 85. The trailer fishtailed dangerously on the narrow blacktop, but I didn't care. The only thing behind me was death. The Malibu was faster, closing the gap with terrifying ease. Its headlights danced across my mirrors, blinding me until suddenly, bang! My passenger side mirror exploded into shards of glass. He was shooting at me. The sound rang in my skull, deafening, each gunshot echoing through the desert night. Another bang. The back window cracked. I ducked instinctively, knuckles white on the wheel, praying he wouldn't hit a tire. Then he made his move. The Malibu swerved into the opposite lane again, crawling up alongside my cab. For a split second, I saw his face illuminated by the muzzle flash. Cold, sweaty, eyes wild with focus. He leveled the rifle at me, point blank. I didn't think. I yanked the wheel hard left. The trailer swung wide, its metal side clipping the Malibu with a thunderous crunch. Sparks erupted as steel shredded across his hood. The car veered off the road, spinning out in a cloud of dust and gravel. I didn't slow down, I didn't dare. My entire body was trembling, my lungs burning, but adrenaline kept my foot pressed against the floor. For a few glorious seconds, I thought I'd finally escaped. Until I saw headlights again in the distance. Not one pair. Two. More cars were waiting up ahead. Two sets of headlights glared ahead, parked crosswise across the highway, blocking both lanes like a barricade. My stomach dropped as I realized this wasn't random, this was a hunt. The semi's brakes shrieked as I slowed, tires smoking, trailer rattling like it would snap loose. Behind me, in my mirrors, the Malibu was back on the road, limping but alive, its lights bearing down on me again. I was trapped. 3 vehicles now, the cruiser, the Malibu, and 2 more, an old pickup and a black SUV idling ahead, engines rumbling like they were waiting for me. The SUV's door opened. A tall, gaunt man stepped out, his silhouette framed by the desert moonlight. He held a length of heavy chain in one hand, dragging it along the asphalt with a metallic clink, clink, clink. From the pickup came another figure, a woman this time, her hair matted, her dress stained. She carried something worse than a gun, a hacksaw, rusted, jagged. She dragged her thumb across its teeth as if testing them, smiling like a wolf that had caught the scent of blood. My throat went dry. This wasn't a coincidence, this was a ritual. The deputy's words echoed in my skull. Step out of the vehicle. They hadn't wanted me to just stop. They wanted me delivered. The four of them closed in now, the Malibu pulling up behind, the deputy's cruiser circling to my side, the pickup and SUV tightening their blockade ahead. The desert was silent except for the hum of their engines and the metallic scrape of that chain. I realized something then, something that made my blood run colder than the rifle shots. This wasn't their first time, and if I didn't do something now, I was going to be their next body in the ground. The blockade loomed closer, my headlights painting monsters out of ordinary people. The gaunt man with the chain, the woman with the hacksaw, the deputy with his shovel, and behind me the Malibu limping but relentless. I had one shot left. I gripped the wheel so tight my hands went numb. My rig wasn't a weapon, it was a coffin on wheels, but if I aimed it right, maybe, just maybe, I could carve a hole through their wall. I dropped a gear and slammed the accelerator. The semi howled forward, engines screaming, the trailer swaying like it would flip at any second. The SUV and pickup revved their engines, bracing. The gaunt man dragged his chain into the center of the road, spreading his arms like he wanted me to come. And for a split second I saw it. Behind him off the highway, a narrow dirt service road barely visible in the moonlight. My only way out. I yanked the wheel at the last possible second. The semi lurched violently off the pavement, bouncing hard onto the dirt. My trailer clipped the edge of the barricade, tearing metal and sending sparks flying. I heard screaming behind me as the gaunt man dove clear. The rig bucked and slammed down hard, but it held. Dust and rock sprayed across my windshield as I barreled down the service road, praying it didn't dead end. Behind me, chaos erupted. Tires screeched, engines roared. Headlights whipped around as the hunters scrambled back into their vehicles. But then, silence. I risked a glance in the mirror. Nothing, just black desert. I kept driving mile after mile until my fuel gauge was screaming empty and the horizon began to gray with dawn. Finally, I pulled over, shaking, heart still slamming against my ribs. I stumbled out of the cab, knees weak, sucking in the cold morning air. I thought I'd survived, until I saw it. Spray painted across the side of my trailer, in dripping black letters I knew hadn't been there before. Next time. Story 2. The Hollow House. The rain hadn't stopped in hours. Sheets of water hammered the windshield as I wound my way down a forgotten county road in rural West Virginia. My GPS had cut out miles ago, leaving me with nothing but the faint glow of my headlights and the occasional crack of lightning to guide me. I was already lost when I saw it. An old two-story farmhouse sitting just off the road, its windows dark, its roof sagging, its porch tilting like it might collapse under its own weight. At first I thought it was abandoned, but then I noticed something that made my stomach tighten. A single light was on inside, not warm and inviting, but cold and sterile, flickering like a dying fluorescent bulb. I pulled over, engine idling, telling myself I just needed directions, maybe a phone, anything to get me out of this storm. The rain drowned out every sound as I climbed the porch steps. The wood groaned under my boots, water dripping through the broken gutters above. I knocked once, nothing. Then the light inside blinked out. My heart stuttered in my chest. I turned, ready to get the hell back in my car, when the door creaked open on its own. Just a sliver, enough to see only darkness inside. And then, faint but unmistakable, came a whisper. Not from inside the house, but from directly behind me. The whisper was so close it chilled the back of my neck, like breath brushing across my skin. I spun around, nothing, just the empty road, rain sheeting down in the beam of my headlights. My car sat there idling, exhaust curling faintly in the storm, perfectly still. No one behind me, no footprints in the mud. But I swear, I'd heard it. A single word. A name, maybe. My name! I turned back to the house. The door was open wider now, wide enough that I could see inside. The air pouring out was wrong. Not cold, not warm, just stale. like the breath of something ancient that hadn't moved in years. I should have left, I knew that. But my feet betrayed me. I stepped across the threshold. The smell hit me first. Mold, wet wood, and something else beneath it all. Metallic, coppery, blood. The door slammed behind me with a force that rattled the walls. I jumped, my pulse hammering, twisting back to grab the handle. It didn't budge. I yanked harder. Nothing. The wood seemed to swallow the knob, like the house itself had no intention of letting me go. Lightning flashed through the windows, throwing quick, jagged shadows across the hall. And in that brief strobe of light, I saw them. Figures, standing in the far end of the hallway, silent, motionless. When the lightning faded, they were gone. The whisper coiled around me like smoke, luring me toward the staircase. Each step groaned under my weight, soaked with years of rain seeping through the broken roof. The banister was slick, not from water, but from something sticky, tacky against my palm. I shone the light down, red. The beam wavered as my grip shook. My heart pounded so hard, it felt like the house itself could hear it. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched into darkness, doors lining each side, all closed, all silent. Except one. The last door on the right stood ajar, just slightly, like it had been waiting for me. The smell was strongest here, thick and suffocating. I gagged, covering my mouth, but forced myself forward. The floorboards creaked beneath me, louder with each step. Not random, not accidental, rhythmic. As though the house itself was matching my footsteps, I reached the door. My hand trembled as I pushed it open. The room inside was a child's bedroom, or had been. A rotting crib sat against the wall, its bars broken, one side collapsed. Faded wallpaper of yellow stars peeled from the walls, curling at the edges. In the center of the room sat a rocking chair. It rocked slowly back and forth, though there was no one in it. The whisper came again, but now it wasn't behind me, it wasn't upstairs. It was right next to my ear, and this time it laughed. The laugh lingered in the stale air, thin and sharp, like glass scraping on glass. My flashlight flickered. For a moment the beam dimmed to nothing, and in that instant of dark I heard the creak of the rocking chair stop. When the light sputtered back, the chair was empty. Still. But the crib wasn't. Something crouched inside it. At first my mind refused to register the shape. Twisted limbs folded the wrong way, skin grey and stretched too thin over bone. Its head lolled, too heavy for its neck, its mouth hanging open in a silent scream. The smell hit me then. Rot. Not just old wood or mildew. Flesh. Its eyes opened. Two pale, glassy orbs that didn't blink. The laugh returned, only now it wasn't a whisper. It was pouring out of that thing's mouth, shrill and broken, as though its throat had been torn raw, but it couldn't stop. I stumbled back, my shoulder slamming into the doorframe. My phone slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor, the light skittering across the peeling wallpaper. The thing in the crib moved. Its arms jerked, spasming unnaturally, each crack of its joints louder than the storm outside. And then slowly it began to pull itself up, its body unfolding higher, taller, stretching impossibly as though it had been waiting for someone to open the door. The rocking chair started again. But this time I realized it wasn't moving on its own. Something unseen sat there, watching. The crib groaned as that thing rose, joints snapping, its body jerking like a marionette pulled by invisible strings. My phone's light wavered across its face, if you could call it that. Its mouth tore wider, skin splitting at the corners, revealing rows of teeth too small, too many. The laugh poured out louder, shrieking, echoing off the rotting walls until it didn't sound like one voice anymore. It sounded like dozens. I staggered back, my hand brushing the rocking chair, cold, not just cold, solid. Someone was sitting there. I couldn't see them, but my fingers pressed into the sharp ridge of a knee, the fold of a hand resting on the armrest. And when I touched it, the chair stopped rocking. The invisible thing leaned forward. The air pressed heavy against me and a voice hissed into my ear, not like a whisper this time, but a command. Stay. The creature in the crib snapped its head toward me, teeth clicking, body lurching forward as if ready to climb out. I was trapped. One thing I could see, one I couldn't, and both closing in. The door behind me slammed shut on its own, rattling the frame. The storm outside howled, but it was nothing compared to the noise swelling in the room. The laughter, the whispers, the command that repeated over and over in a dozen voices now. Stay, stay, stay. My knees buckled. I dropped to the floor, grabbing for my phone. The beam of light rolled wildly across the walls and landed on something I hadn't noticed before. A message, scratched deep into the wood above the crib, jagged letters carved with something sharp. Don't look away. The words carved into the wall burned in my mind. Don't look away. The creature in the crib crept higher, its limbs scraping against the wood, joints snapping like dry branches. Its face, if it even was a face, hung inches from mine, teeth chattering like rattling glass. I wanted to close my eyes, to curl up and disappear. But something deep inside whispered, if you look away, you're finished. The rocking chair creaked as the unseen weight shifted. The air pressed heavy against my back, colder than ice, its presence so close I could feel the breath that wasn't a breath brushing the back of my neck. Two predators, one in front of me, one behind me, both waiting for me to make the wrong move. The thing in the crib leaned closer, its unblinking eyes locking on mine. Its laugh twisted into words, broken syllables forcing through its ruined throat. See. Me. I couldn't move, couldn't blink. My eyes burned with tears, but I didn't dare break the stare. Behind me the chair groaned. The unseen voice slithered into my ear again, furious now, vibrating my bones with every word. Don't look at it. The two commands clashed in my skull, one demanding I keep watching, the other demanding I turn away. My heart slammed against my ribs, my vision blurred. The storm outside cracked thunder, the flash of lightning searing through the broken window, and in that instant of white light I saw them both. Not separate, but the same thing. One half invisible, one half revealed, and both staring at me. The lightning burned the image into my mind. The crib thing and the figure in the chair weren't two entities. They were fragments, halves, a body that wasn't whole, a spirit stretched too thin. And they wanted me. The walls groaned as though the house itself was breathing. Wallpaper peeled back in strips, revealing not wood, not plaster, but carvings, names, dozens, maybe hundreds, scratched into the frame, overlapping, some fresh, some so old the letters had nearly faded. Every name was followed by the same phrase carved deep, gouged in desperation. Stayed. I staggered back, bile rising in my throat. My light shook across the walls, catching a newer set of scratches, letters that hadn't even finished drying. The wood was raw, splinters curling from the pressure of the blade. It was my name, half finished. The thing in the crib laughed louder, body twisting unnaturally as it began to climb over the railing. Splinters cracked as its weight shifted, arms stretching toward me like they wanted to pull me into the wood itself. Behind me, the invisible figure pressed closer, its breath hot now, whispering in 100 voices layered over one another. You've already stayed. You just don't know it yet. The names on the walls began to move, letters writhing, rearranging themselves. Some blurred, some vanished, swallowed back into the house. But the newest one, mine, burned brighter, glowing faintly as though carved from within by fire. I realized then, this house didn't keep people, it absorbed them. I lunged for the door, shoving it with my shoulder. The frame rattled but wouldn't budge, like the wood had fused into stone. The laugh from the crib followed me, high-pitched and wet, each syllable shaking the air. The invisible figure pressed closer, its cold weight dragging across my back like claws. I sprinted down the hall toward the stairs, only to skid to a stop. The stairwell was gone. Where there should have been steps leading down, there was nothing. Just a black void yawning open, swallowing the place I had climbed. A pit without bottom. The house groaned again, the walls bowing inward. Wallpaper tore loose in strips, flapping like skin. Beneath I saw more names, endless columns carved so deep they bled sap like open wounds. The floor lurched. I staggered, grabbing at the wall, but it pulsed under my hand, warm, alive. I screamed and tore away, bolting for the nearest room. A bedroom. The window at the far end was still there, rain hammering against the glass. Freedom. I rushed forward, but before I reached it, the glass fogged from the inside. Words smeared across it, written by a finger I couldn't see. Stay. The fog spread until I could no longer see the storm outside. Instead, the reflection in the glass sharpened. Not mine, but a figure standing behind me, close enough to touch. The reflection in the window smiled. Not me, not human. Its grin stretched too wide, teeth jagged like broken glass. I spun, but there was no one there, only the invisible weight pressing closer, breath scraping against my ear. The laugh from the crib shrieked louder, filling the room until the floorboards buckled beneath me. The house wasn't just alive, it was hungry. The walls clenched inward with a wet, splintering sound. Nails popped free, beams groaned. My name carved above the crib glowed brighter, burning through the wood like fire. Stay! The voices thundered in unison, rattling my skull. I bolted to the window, slamming the flashlight against the glass until it cracked. Rain sprayed through, cool and sharp. I clawed at the jagged hole, desperate to crawl through, even if it meant tearing myself to ribbons. Behind me, the footsteps came. Not one set, dozens, hundreds, as if every name carved into these walls had risen to walk again. Hands, too many, closed around my arms, my throat, my legs, invisible, but crushing, pinning me against the shards of the broken window. I screamed, but the storm outside swallowed the sound. The last thing I saw was my reflection in the glass, and it was smiling back at me. Then, darkness. The next morning, the hollow house stood silent, empty. But inside, carved fresh into the wall above the crib, a name gleamed in the damp light. Mine. Story 3. Whispers in the Pines. The highway cut through endless pine trees, the night so black my headlights seemed to vanish into it. I'd been driving for hours, the storm chasing me from town to town, rain smearing across the windshield in sheets. That's when I saw it, a cross. It stood on the shoulder, crooked and splintered, lit only by the sweep of my headlights. Flowers, long dead, clung to its base, their petals shriveled to nothing. A stuffed bear lay collapsed in the mud beside it, its face rotted away by years of weather. I slowed, my stomach twisting. There was writing on the cross, not carved, scratched as if by nails. I squinted through the rain, leaning closer to the glass. The words glistened red, dripping down the wood like fresh paint. Don't stop. Thunder cracked overhead. The pines swayed in the wind, groaning like voices. And then, movement. For a split second, in the corner of my headlights, I saw a figure standing at the tree line. Small, barefoot, watching me. The storm swallowed the road again, and when I blinked, the figure was gone. The words on the cross burned in my mind. Don't stop. I gripped the wheel tighter, forcing myself to keep driving. The rain hammered harder. The road slick and shining, the wipers squealing against the glass. Then, a shadow darted across the road. I slammed the brakes, tires screaming against the wet asphalt. The car skidded sideways before shuddering to a stop, the headlights cutting through the curtain of rain. And there it was, a child, standing dead center in the road, barefoot, soaked through. Its hair clung to its face, long strands plastered to pale skin. It didn't move, didn't blink, just stared. I leaned forward, heart slamming, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. A little boy? A girl? I couldn't tell. The storm roared around us, but somehow, I heard it. A whisper, not from outside, from inside the car, right next to my ear. Pick me up. My hands trembled on the wheel. The child raised one arm, pointing directly at my car. Behind me, through the roar of the storm, I heard the sound of a second set of footsteps, but I hadn't opened the doors. I froze. The kid didn't move, just kept pointing at me, rain running down its arm, its finger locked on my truck like a compass. The whisper came again, this time from the back seat. Let me in. I whipped around, breath caught in my throat. The cab was empty. Of course it was. But the smell, wet earth, rot, like something that had been buried and dug up again, filled the air. A sharp knock hit the passenger window. I snapped my head back. The child wasn't in the road anymore. It was pressed against the glass. Face pale, lips blue, eyes black like wet marbles. Its tiny hand smeared water across the window as it slowly dragged its finger along the glass, down, then across, drawing something. A cross, upside down. My breath fogged the windshield as I threw the truck into gear, but just before I hit the gas, another sound cut through the storm. A knock from inside the sleeper cabin. 3 knocks, slow, deliberate. The kind of knocks from someone who already knew they were welcome. The knocks came again. 3, slow, heavy. The kind of sound that makes your gut twist because you know you're not supposed to hear it there. I gripped the wheel with one hand and reached back with the other, fingers trembling as they brushed the curtain to the sleeper cabin. Cold air leaked through the gap. Not just cold, damp, like rain had soaked through the walls, dripping onto the mattress. My stomach sank. I yanked the curtain open. The sleeper was pitch black, but in the brief flash of lightning outside, I saw it. Tiny wet footprints across the bedding, leading to the far corner. I squinted, breath caught, my eyes straining against the dark. And then in the glow of the dashboard lights, I saw movement, something small, curling up, shifting beneath the blanket. The outline of a body, a child's body. The blanket rose and fell, like it was breathing, and then in a voice that rattled the air came a whisper from under the covers. "You should have stopped." The blanket twitched, and something started to crawl out. The blanket shifted again. Someone was definitely beneath it. I could hear the faint rasp of breath, shallow wheezing like lungs filling with water. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might punch through my chest. Lightning flashed. The blanket collapsed flat. Whatever had been under there was gone. I stared, frozen, sweat mixing with the rain dripping from my jacket. Then in the silence between thunderclaps, a faint giggle. High-pitched, childlike. It didn't come from the sleeper. It came from above me. I tilted my head up. For just a second, just long enough to scar me forever, I saw a small face pressed against the cab's ceiling, its mouth stretched impossibly wide, teeth like broken glass, black water dribbling down its chin. Then it snapped its head sideways with a sickening crack and vanished into the shadows of the truck. My entire body locked up. The smell of rot flooded the cab, and from the radio, though it was off, came a voice. "Turn back, or you'll never leave the pines." I slammed the truck into gear and floored it. The wheels screamed against the wet asphalt, water spraying up in sheets as the semi lurched forward. I didn't care where I ended up. I just needed to get the hell away from whatever was in that sleeper. The headlights cut through the curtain of rain. The trees lining the road blurred past, towering pines, their branches clawing at the night sky. I drove for 10 minutes, then 20, then 40, but the road never changed. The same curve, the same row of trees leaning over the shoulder. The same crooked mile marker, 66. No matter how fast I pushed the truck, I kept passing it, again and again. The storm never let up. The wipers squealed across the windshield like they were screaming, and through the static of the storm, I realized something. There were voices in the rain. Children's voices, whispering, laughing, crying. They bled through the sound of the downpour, surrounding the cab, some so close it was like they were pressed against the windows. One voice rose above the rest, clear, sharp inside my head. "You missed the turn." The steering wheel jerked in my hands. Something else was trying to drive. The wheel twisted violently to the right, nearly ripping out of my hands. I fought it, knuckles white, arms shaking as the semi skidded on the wet asphalt. The trailer fishtailed, tires spraying water like a tidal wave. Through the windshield, the trees split open. A side road, narrow, jagged, more like a dirt path than anything fit for a truck. I knew it hadn't been there a second ago. The whispers grew louder, shrill now, hundreds of little voices chanting in unison. "Turn, turn, turn." My muscles screamed as I pulled the wheel back toward the highway. For one terrifying second, it felt like invisible hands were clamped over mine, forcing me toward the opening in the pines. I stomped the accelerator, engine roaring, the truck surging forward. The road ahead seemed to stretch out, a straight line to freedom, and then it was gone. I was already on the side road. The highway had vanished behind me. The pines swallowed everything. The headlights barely reached 10 feet before being smothered by the black wall of trees. The dirt beneath the tires was uneven, sucking the semi deeper and deeper into the forest. And above the engine's roar, the voices whispered one word in perfect echoing harmony: home. The truck groaned as it climbed deeper into the dirt path. Branches clawed at the trailer, scraping metal with a shriek like nails on a coffin. The forest pressed closer with every mile, the trees bending unnaturally inward, their trunks twisted like broken spines. I killed the radio hours ago, but static hissed through the speakers anyway. Beneath the static, voices, murmurs, like dozens of people whispering in a church just out of earshot. Then, through the wash of the headlights, I saw them, shapes, standing between the trees. Tall, thin figures, limbs too long, faces pale and blurred, like they'd been smudged out of existence. Their heads turned as one when my truck passed, following me with eyeless sockets. One lifted its arm, bony fingers twitching, and pointed deeper into the woods. The same way the child had pointed at my truck. My foot pressed harder on the gas, though the road beneath me was mud now, slick and sucking at the wheels. The semi groaned, metal rattling, as if it didn't want to go forward. That's when I noticed the mirrors. Something was running alongside the trailer, not on 2 legs, not on 4. It moved like smoke, a blur that shifted in and out of form. Sometimes a child, sometimes a shadow, sometimes nothing at all. And every time it flickered into shape, I could hear it. That same giggle, right outside my window. The mud swallowed the wheels deeper with every turn. The engine screamed, the whole rig shaking as if it was being dragged down by something unseen. I leaned forward, my face inches from the windshield, praying for a break in the trees, a clearing, a light, anything. But the road ended, dead stop. The headlights lit up nothing but a wall of pines, their trunks gnarled and interwoven like prison bars. No space between them, no sky above, just a cage, the static on the radio cut out. And in the silence, every whisper I had heard before came back all at once. Children crying, laughter, screams, the sound of bones snapping, a chorus of voices pressing into my skull until I thought it would split. Something knocked on the cab door. Knock, knock, knock. Slow, heavy. I didn't turn. Couldn't. My eyes locked forward as the headlights began to dim. Not flicker, dim, like the darkness itself was swallowing the light. And then, between the trees ahead, pairs of eyes opened. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Small, wide, reflecting the faint glow of my dying beams. One voice rose above the others, clear as a bell, coming from everywhere at once. You brought us home. The door handle beside me twitched. Something was trying to get in. The handle jerked harder. Metal rattled, plastic creaked. I pressed my weight against the door, knuckles white, praying the lock would hold. Then the other side. The passenger door began to twitch. The sleeper curtain rippled. Every inch of the cab was alive with movement, like a dozen hands were already inside. The windshield fogged over, but not from my breath. Shapes pressed against the glass from the outside. Tiny palms smeared with mud. Hundreds of them. And then, in the back seat, a voice no louder than a whisper said, "We're already here." I spun, but the sleeper wasn't empty anymore. They were packed in. Children, pale, soaked. Their eyes black as tar. Their mouths open in silent screams. Their bodies twisted, broken, as if they'd all drowned together. One crawled forward, bones cracking with every movement. Its face hovered inches from mine, dripping cold water onto my lap. You should have stopped. The lights went out. The storm ended. And in the silence of the forest, all that remained was the sound of the truck's engine idling, and the faint, endless sound of children laughing.